Jason Lloyd. He joins us now. Happy Friday, Jason.
Hello, Jason.
Hey, man, don't expect me to make sense of the Cleveland Browns. You've come to the wrong spot if you expect me to make sense of all of this.
Well, we're going to try.
It's funny because, Jason, I kind of feel the same way where I'm like, you know what, for the past year or so, they just don't do anything I advise anyway, and they just always go the wrong direction. So maybe I just tap out of this one. I don't know.
I don't even know. Where do you want to start?
Well, how about we go here? What's the right reaction to Joe Flacco's success last night, 2 weeks after being traded in the division to Cincy?
All right, this is complicated because, first of all, I never understood why they signed him. He's a 40-year-old quarterback. I've said that since the day they signed him. What are you doing? Why are you signing a 40-year-old quarterback? I haven't understood any of their plans that they've done with any of these quarterbacks. I haven't understood anything they've done since they signed Joe, drafted 2 mid-round rookies, and then traded Pickett, who was supposed to be your day one starter. Like, nothing they have done makes sense. So on the one hand, of course, yesterday was embarrassing for the Browns, right? Like, it felt like Cleveland lost and Cleveland didn't even play. I mean, when you got Bengals fans chanting, "Thank you, Cleveland," like the Browns are a punchline again. On the other hand, he's a 40-year-old quarterback. He didn't have much of a future here, so I get that part. To me, the biggest indictment, I wrote this today, I've talked about, the biggest indictment is really on the Browns receivers. And, there was always going to be a game where Joe's going to throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns just because of who he's throwing the ball to. It's just, of course, it's the Browns' luck that it happens on a national game. It's the only game on and the entire country is watching. But are you really shocked that, Joe had a great game throwing to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins? I'm not. And I was the one saying, he can't move back there with the Browns. But when you look at the Browns receivers and you look at who he's throwing to in Cincinnati, why was last night such a shock? Honestly, why?
No, it didn't catch us by surprise. We said that he'd have more success there. The hard part I have is that, Jason, I feel like there are plenty of quarterbacks that have success without a good group of wide receivers. Baker this last weekend, he didn't have Godwin, didn't have Evans. Ibuka got injured early in that game, and he was throwing to Tez and Cameron Johnson. Cameron Johnson, a D2 player who was making his first career receptions, and the guy was having touchdowns. But you can't be bad at both. You can't miss wide receivers and offensive line. And where the Browns have had their struggles, at least run up against it here, is that they're bad in both areas. I don't think it's just being bad in one area. I think it's being bad in both areas, Jason.
The tackles are the worst collection of tackles in the NFL. I don't have the data to support that, but my eyes tell me there is no team in the league with worse tackle play right now than the Cleveland Browns. But I do have data for the rest. Okay, so you ready? Mm-hmm. Browns receivers are dead last in the league at creating separation. They are, in terms of speed, on max speed on routes, they're 30th in the league. And in terms of tight window catches, like having to contest and make a contested catch, they're dead last. They've made 2 of 20, and no one else in the league is under 19%, and the Browns are at 10%, 2 of 21. Sorry. So, let's sum that up real quick because people are driving and they're not writing this down. They have some of the slowest receivers in the league. They don't create separation. They don't catch contested passes. And I forgot, they lead the league with 17 drops, and 10 of those 17 would have been first downs. So you can talk about injuries, and you can talk about other teams' receiving core, and but other teams don't have 2 elite receivers. No other team in the NFL has a receiving room that bad. Show me another team that has slow receivers who don't create separation, who can't catch balls in traffic, and who drop first downs. And then show me how you're supposed to move the ball on offense with that. So this is, I don't have the data to tell you these are the worst tackles. I just gave you all of the data that this is probably the worst receiver room in the NFL.
Jason Lloyd of The Athletic on the fan hotline here. So we're talking about lessons that can be learned here. And I want to focus specifically on the Haslams and Jimmy Haslam. What should Jimmy Haslam have learned from the last 6 years with the thought partners?
You want me to be a smart aleck?
Yes.
Because the overwhelming answer was the Deshaun trade was a mistake. Everything that has gone wrong with the Browns can be traced back to that trade. And I know you're looking for something a little bit more philosophical about who you can trust or who do you put your faith in or something like that. But honestly, it all goes back to Deshaun. the picks that they gave up, the cap sheet that has been devoted to him, kicking the numbers down the road year after year after year, and this massive cap hit that's still looming. Not to mention just the tragic miss that the quarterback was. Like, it was devastating to the franchise, and it's going to take multiple years to dig out of that. And that's what you learn from it is, like, they missed. And beyond that, I don't know what grand lesson you can learn, because it's an enormous if that trade hits, you're having a completely different conversation today and everything looks a lot better. But when you don't have a quarterback, it exposes everything else on your roster. And right now the Browns have a nice running back who's a rookie, who I think is going to be really, really good for a really long time. And that's it. They don't have a quarterback. The receiving room is awful. They have no linemen under contract for next year. I've said this a zillion times. I'm sick of saying it. I'm sure people are sick of hearing it, but it never rings true more than it does today. The offense was horrible last year. And what did they do to address it? They traded down from 2 to 5, and they spent their top 2 picks on defensive players. So what did you think was going to change? Could have taken a left tackle at 2, could have traded down to 5 and taken a left tackle. I think Mason Graham is going to be a wonderful player on this team for a long time. Also, I think left tackle was a bigger priority on this team than defensive tackle was. And they had opportunities to address it. I think Carson Schlesinger is going to be a wonderful linebacker. He's going to be a great player. Like, two things can be true. They made great draft picks that are going to help this team win, and there were more pressing areas on the team as well than defense, than linebacker and defensive tackle. So they got Quinshawn, and they don't have much else because they've taken one lineman in the last 2 years, and he can't dress on Sundays. He's so bad. Think about how awful the Browns' offensive line situation is, and Zach Zinter can't even be active on Sundays. That's how bad of a pick that was. So the offensive line, like, we're so focused on quarterback, and rightfully so. The offensive line is really at a crisis point because there's nobody under contract. None of these guys are under contract next year. So I don't know. I always assumed, Joel's going to retire and they'll probably move on from Wyatt. You might have to bring Wyatt back. Who else is going to play? You can bring in 5 new guys? Like, you got to have some sort of somebody who knows what they're doing out there and somebody who has experience. So who knows? Maybe by we get to January, this entire thing's blowing out anyway and everybody's gone. Who knows? But like the offensive line and the fact that hasn't been addressed, the only time they've addressed it the last 2 years through the draft is on a guy who can't even be active, let alone on the field on Sundays, is an embarrassment.
Yeah, and that's why I said it's offensive line, it's receivers, it's a combination. It's just a poo-poo platter of suck right now. But when you have 14 rookies. You have 14 rookies, right? Is that what we're up to? Yeah.
14 rookies on this roster, and probably half of them are undrafted. What did you think was going to happen this year?
Well, and so that makes me ask you this: when it comes to Dillon Gabriel, and I'm gonna loop Shedeur into this as well because he's probably going to see the field at some point as well. When we talk about how bad the receivers are, how bad the offensive line is, the amount of rookies that are playing, is it unfair to even try to judge these quarterbacks off of the lack of talent that is around them?
Yes, when 3rd round and 5th round rookie quarterbacks should sit, hold a clipboard, and watch for at least a year. Like, who in their right mind picks these guys to throw them in to play? But because the Browns are in the situation that they're in, because the Deshaun thing was such a disaster and such a swing and a miss, now they're in the spot. And because I don't understand anything that they did with the veterans. I have no explanation for how they got to this point. And so like, two things can be true. Like, it's completely wildly unfair to these rookies to throw them out there right now, but at the same time, got to see what you have, so you got to throw them out there. But, Dillon, I think, is a little bit more of a finished product, with his age and with his experience, his college experience, 60-some-odd starts. Shedeur, I've said it since summer. He's not ready. And I've heard nothing to the contrary to tell me that he is ready. He is not ready to play in an NFL game. But that's not going to matter because they're going to throw him out there. And they'll probably get the crap beat out of him, and the people who don't like him are going to scream, see, he sucks, and the people who defend him are going to say, well, the organization set him up to fail, and then they're going to take another quarterback next year, and round we go. And the carousel never stops. When in reality, it's not fair to the kid to throw him out there when he's not ready, but nobody's going to believe that. Like, everybody just wants to see Shedeur, and I understand why you want to see him. I get why people want to see him. He's not ready.
Jason, the Dolphins in town this weekend. Feels like the most winnable game you've had all season. The weather also could be quite fluky here. What's the difference between a 1-6 Browns team on Monday and a 2-5 Browns team on Monday?
So I said this earlier today, Nick. I was thinking about this. Last year, if you remember the Commanders game, I booked a flight to go to Washington on like Thursday because I wasn't going to go to the game. And then on like Thursday, I booked the flight. It's like, this just feels like it could be a tipping point with this team. Like if they win, they can pull the nose up. It's not as bad as we think. It was an October game. I don't remember. I think it was like week 4 or 5. I don't remember. It was early, a little bit earlier than it is now. And it just felt like if they go in there, they go into that stadium and they win that game, maybe they can salvage the season. And instead, they got blown off the field. Jaden Daniels looked terrific. All the quarterback that the Browns thought they were getting, Deshaun Watson, is exactly what Jaden Daniels was. Watson looked awful. They get embarrassed on the road. And I remember walking through the locker room and seeing the blank stares on various members of the organization and thinking, nope, it's even worse than I thought. Like, this really is going to be a catastrophe season. That was the week that told me this is over, the season is over, and this is going to get really, really dark and really, really ugly. And I kind of get the sense that this week is shaping up to feel the same way because I've said all along, guys, the first 6 weeks were brutal. You knew it was an impossible start to the season. Everybody said it. Look at this as a murderer's row of opponents. They could be staring at 0-6. Well, they're not 0-6, but they're close to it. So nothing that's happened to this point should surprise you in terms of where they are with record. But now you're 100% right. There are winnable games in front of them now. So if they come out and they get blown off the field at home Sunday, this is going to be that tipping point of, oh boy, we've seen this before. This is going to get even worse than we thought. This is a game they should win. They're playing at home. They're playing a game against a team that's equally as dysfunctional as they are. The Dolphins are horrendous at stopping the run. The Browns, even in bad weather, the Browns should be able to run the ball enough to win this game. If they lose a close one, well, let's see how it looks. If they get blown off the field, as they did last year at Washington, this is going to get really, really dark really, really early because they've got a lot of winnable games coming up. The Jets, the Titans, these guys, the Dolphins, the Patriots aren't infallible on the road. You can win that game. So there's plenty of wins out there. I've maintained for 6 weeks, just get through, just grit your teeth and get through these first 6 weeks and then see what you look like on the other side and you have opportunities to win. Now they've gone through the quarterbacks a lot faster than I thought they would. And they're already, if you count Pickett, they're already down to number 3. So I didn't know necessarily that they were going to get to this point that quickly, but that doesn't change the fact that there are games out there to win. And we're going to find out right now this week where this team's truly at.
Mason Graham questionable for this weekend. Has he been a disappointment to you? I mean, that's the number 5 overall pick.
No, I know, like, whatever. I've heard, like, what PFF has him in the 70s. I don't pay a ton of attention to PFF. I don't pretend to be a defensive line coach, but for whatever reason, I've kind of fixated on watching him a lot during games. You really kind of have to watch in person. You can't really tell on TV. And I've seen a lot of teams doubling him, which I don't recall. I'm not saying it hasn't happened before because I didn't really study defensive tackles before, but it's been more noticeable to me this year that they're doubling Graham more than I've noticed defensive tackles being doubled in the past. And I think he's going to be I think he's a good player. I think he's going to be a good player for this team for the next decade. But like I said, I just felt like there was more pressing needs in the draft when they took him. He has not been a disappointment to me. I think he's been fine. I think he'll continue to be fine. But you can make the case. I think you can make a strong case. What was the bigger need on this team? Defensive tackle or left tackle, or even right tackle, or whatever. Just get a tackle of any kind. You were never going to solve all of your issues in one draft. Like, I concede that. But when you spend 2 picks on running backs and 2 picks on quarterbacks with all the holes that this offense had, and to spend your top 2 picks on defense, again, with all the holes this offense had, it can be a great draft and it can be a curious draft at the same time.
Jason, just to get back to the impact of this Miami game, you talked about how it feels like this could be that left turn that nobody really wants here. Is firing Kevin Stefanski in season still off the table right now?
What does that serve? I don't know what purpose that serves. I would, give him the entire season and see where you're at. Like, you're not going anywhere. This team's not going anywhere. What is there to salvage? This was never going to be a playoff team. Like this, Vegas told you. It was obvious if you paid attention to what they were saying and the moves they were making, it was clear from the jump this was not a team that was going to be a playoff team. So what are you trying to salvage and save by firing the coach now? That's teams that fire the coach in the middle of the season are trying to get a jump start spark on saving season turnaround. That's not the case here. So no, I just give them the season. And, I've reiterated this point 1,000 times. If you want to fire Kevin Stefanski, I'm not going to argue with you. Like, there's certainly a case to be made with that. I just think that there are a unique set of challenges that come with coaching the Browns. And I think he has proven when he has the talent, he can navigate the landmines and the obstacles, and he can do a good job. This team has very, very little talent on the offensive side of the ball right now, and it shows. So let's get to January and see where it's at.
Do you look at Stefanski and Barry as a package deal, or do you look at it like as Stefanski could get fired and Barry could keep his job, or Barry could get fired and Stefanski could keep his job, and they're not so connected?
No, I don't think it's a package deal. I don't think that at all. I haven't thought that. Remember, Kevin was here first, and I only bring that up. Like, you could fire the GM and keep the coach. You could fire the coach and keep the GM and let the GM pick the coach. I don't know that either one of them has earned the benefit with 2 first-round picks next year of saying, this is who we should be targeting. I don't know that either one of them really have the track record. Yeah, I think the Browns had a great draft this year. I love the trade down with Jacksonville. I thought they knocked it out of the park to pick up the extra pick and whatever else. But it's to this point, one pretty good draft out of how many years. And I make the case, if you want to fire him, honestly, to me, the best case, if you want to just blow everybody out or fire everyone, it's if Jackson Dart has a tremendous rookie season with New York, because you told me, and again, I don't care where the projection said. I don't care. I don't care where he went. You had the number 2 pick in the draft at the start of this, and you were desperate for a quarterback. And you went to ownership and said, this is a 1 quarterback draft, and we can't get to him. And if Dart turns out to be the guy, when you had Bubba coaching him at the Senior Bowl and you had more access to Jackson Dart than any of these other quarterbacks, that is the biggest indictment on Dart, on Kevin and Andrew, than anything else you can put in front of them. I don't care about how often they run the ball or any of that. Like, the biggest indictment is you need a quarterback. You are desperate for a quarterback. You had your option at every quarterback but Cam Ward, and you convinced yourself that there was no quarterback worth taking in the first round. And if somebody who was where was Dart taken, like 15th? If somebody taken there turns out to be an excellent NFL quarterback, that's reason enough to say I can't trust your evaluations of NFL quarterbacks.
Jason, great stuff. We appreciate your time here on a Friday. Have a great weekend.
All right, I'll see you guys.
Jason Lloyd there of The Athletic on the Fan Hotline.